We need more studies. No, this is by far the most studied thing in the history of humankind. We don't need more studies to prove that it's still, after 10,000 years, not going to kill anybody.
It's time to consider cannabis. I'm your host, Curtis. In a few minutes, we're going to sit down with Teaera Roland of Lotus Health. Last week, we sat down with Angelica Warren, and if you've not yet heard Angelica's story, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it. It is truly inspiring, and you will not regret it. But this week's episode marks the last episode of Consider Cannabis for the year 2018. But we'll be back in 2019 with more patient interviews with health providers, and as Ohio's medical marijuana program fully rolls out in the coming months, I hope to bring you all the information you could possibly need while considering cannabis, including new products as they become available, and even take you inside test laboratories and grow facilities. When I think about what future episodes could have in store, the possibilities are really limitless. But it's important to not get too caught up in the could-bes of the future, just like we shouldn't get stuck in our past. And I know how hard it can be at this time of year to just continue in the present, but that's really where we need to live, because that's where we do live. The Christmas season can be rough, it can be lonely, and it can be really mean, especially when we're around family who don't love like they should. So if you're having a hard time this season, know that your life matters. You have value, and I cannot wait to hear your story. And now, Teaera Roland and Lotus Health. Lotus Health is located at 991 Reading Road, Suite 2 in Mason, Ohio, and they offer comprehensive holistic health services, including medical cannabis evaluations, addiction treatment, holistic primary care, holistic mental health, and individualized care. Now, Consider Cannabis is in no way associated with Lotus Health. We are not sponsored by Lotus Health, and we have no stake in Lotus Health. What we will say is that you should always take great care when picking a healthcare provider. Could Lotus Health be a good fit for you and your health needs? Perhaps we'll find out. Let's sit down with Teaera Roland of Lotus Health and consider cannabis together. So Teaera, you're with Lotus Health.
Yeah, actually, it's a small practice that I own here in Mason. I've always wanted my own practice, but it was a long journey to get there. Started with critical care, nursing, and I immediately was into cannabis as a medicine, as a brand new nurse. I walked into a patient's room, and the lady was giving her husband, something. And I was like, what are you giving him? And she's, pot brownie. I was like, pot brownie, huh? She's like, yep, I'm giving him a pot brownie. So I just said, okay, walked out. And as a good nurse, I looked it up. Like, what does this have to do with this medication? Like, I just finished college. I knew plenty about pot.
Sure.
I knew plenty about cannabis on the side of recreational use.
Right.
But it was more from personal experience or, having fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just really surprising to me. The more I would look up and I would see, I was looking more for drug interactions. The more I looked it up, the more, I couldn't find anything wrong, with any of the medications. And then I really started to look into it. And within a couple of days, I'm reading about how the American Nurses Association has been pro-cannabis since 1979. And, it's been a white paper stance put out again in 96,
really?
In California. And it was, So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So American Nurses Association has always been pro. And what's unfortunate is that this was never taught in nursing school. This was not taught, it wasn't taught that it was okay. It was a drug. And so the more I read about it, I'm like, well, why aren't we using it for this? Or why aren't we using it for that? And so I looked into it just more and more and more. And as I finished through my studies, bachelor's, and then my original master's at Xavier, all the legal presentations and ethical presentations that I would do all had to do about, cannabis. Mm-hmm. It was, it was law in cannabis, and it was ethics in cannabis, and it was population health in cannabis. So I had a couple professors that were not fond at all of me. Yeah, no, they were complete, I can't believe she's saying this, and there was nothing they could do about it because I'm presenting the information. But this was, quite a few years ago when it wasn't really, nothing was legalized yet. It was just legal, I think, in just California and maybe Colorado.
Okay.
Maybe Colorado it was legal. Medicinally, wasn't even recreational yet.
So this first patient, what hospital was this at?
Mercy South.
Mercy South in Cincinnati or like
Fairfield.
Fairfield, okay. And how many years was that before you started Lotus Health?
12 or 13 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been right away. But
was the passing of Bill 523 kind of spur you on to do this?
Oh, no, it was always my plan.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's just a matter of jobs, kids, things like that. But it's always been in my plan. I had left nursing and went into hospital administration because I was under the impression I was going to save our healthcare system. And I was going to do it right because, all of the things that happened when you're the hands-on person, there was something, we could just do it this way or we should try it this way. So I was in, performance improvement and utilization and to the legal aspects of risk management. And that's where I realized that the system's broken and there's nothing that any of us can do. And it's not that, Mercy's worse than somebody else. There's very good people that work for these organizations. Sure. It's organically in this country, our system is completely broken. And there's not, you can be the president of the healthcare system. Your hands are always tied by somewhere else and somebody else. And I realized as I climbed the corporate ladder, the higher you are, the bigger somebody's bitch you are. You actually have more power to change the world from your own two hands. So you just keep going up and up and up and up and up. And yes, I had a great salary and amazing benefits. And I worked with some awesome people and I ran some awesome departments. But my heart hurt. I didn't like it. I was upset. I wasn't going to, make a change. And so it didn't last very long for me because I understand our system and I understand who owns, this world, who owns the country when it comes to money. But even if I know that we might lose or think that we might lose, I refuse. I will be a part of the solution. So when it comes to, helping people understand our options and helping people understand that they don't have to always go to drugs. They don't have to always, there's stigma associated so much to every single thing that we do. Keith has a lifetime in mental health and addiction treatment. And, he'd always say, I didn't ever admit anybody for marijuana addiction to any of the treatment facilities. And it's so kind of learning about that and then getting into understanding how the system is broken. And I said, I'm just going to go back to school. And so I can just prescribe and I can take care of my own patients myself because I would rather make a difference for a small group of patients than not make a difference for hundreds of thousands of patients. So luckily, in my time with Mercy, I was able to work with the most amazing group of people in the entire world, Deerfield Family Medicine. We had the best office managers. We had the best medical assistants, the best registrars, the best physicians. We actually had a great DO. We had a couple of MDs, and then we also had a DO. And by training, they're way more holistic. They kind of look more at the whole person and look for alternative therapies. And we were this team that we ran like a well-oiled machine, and we knew there was no hierarchy. Everybody was just as important as the next person, and our patients were number one over all of us. So it was this Pollyanna office space right at the time that everything was becoming accountable care organizations and MACRA, MIPS, and healthcare reform.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to share an office with my current partner, Dr. Goldenberg. She's an endocrinologist, lipidologist, and functional medicine doctor. And her passion for patients behind the scenes. So it wasn't even fake. And she would go into her patient's room and spend time, and she'd come back and we would just sit in the office and she would just bounce ideas. What about this? How should we try this? What about this? And she literally would rack her brain trying to think of ways to help her patients. And her and I would work together. I was doing care coordination at the time, and I would try and find things to get it covered for patients. And I was more working for the family side, not the specialist side, but sometimes my patients needed things and sometimes her patients needed things. And so it was just a team. We would all work together to get our patients, no matter what they needed. Unfortunately, with the big healthcare systems and new reimbursement laws, that type of experience is very far and few between. I've never run into a team that, awesome before. We all clicked as one family. But while working with Dr. Goldenberg there, I would talk to her about cannabis, and she would just say, okay,
So she wasn't a believer in the beginning?
She's not a believer, but she is a listener.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't pro, but she doesn't ever close her mind off,
That's nice.
To other people's ideas. But, I would talk about it and I would tell her, one day I'm going to have my own practice and we're going to work together and we're going to have our old team back. And, it was this whole thing. And I'm going to do cannabis. I'm going to at least allow people to have that option. And, she would just say, okay, I don't think she believed me. And then she ended up going out on her own through Mercy. She left Mercy, went out on her own at the same time that I had gone out on mine. So we ended up joining together. Still, I work with her at her practice, and then she works with me at mine. And luckily, we happen to build our practices right next to each other.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so her individual practice is not Lotus Health, but she's associated with Lotus Health.
She's our medical director now, but we work with competitors of mine that have the same ideology of how important it is. And
that makes them colleagues, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's funny because I know that who's my competitor and I know who the big box stores are where it's, come in, pay your $350, wink, wink, here's your card. But I also know that there are quite a few actual advocates out there that care about what they're saying and want to make sure that they're saying the correct thing and not just go by the 2-hour webinar that, the state of Ohio requires. But I did need a physician with me because the state of Ohio, a physician actually has to sign off on the recommendation. So even with my 13 years experience and even with being boarded in cannabinoid medicine through the American Association of Cannabinoid Medicine, it doesn't matter. You have to have the MD or the DO in order to, the law doesn't allow for nurse practitioners to actually sign the documentation.
Right. So does Dr. Goldenberg write the recommendations for?
They're already there. She has to see them. So they establish a relationship within the practice. I do the majority of the consultations, histories, physicals, all of that. But she does legally have to see them face to face before, she can register them.
Sure. Do you have other doctors that do that for you also, or is it pretty much just her?
Pretty much her just now. We are, like I said, having discussions with a couple other that have my same ideology. I can find any doctor willing to accept a paycheck to come in and say hi to people, and do nothing. But I want somebody who is passionate about it. And I want somebody who also complements what I don't know.
Sure.
And that's what I look for is what do people have that I don't have? And those are the people that I go after. Because there's always something that they can offer your patient and you could offer theirs. So it's been mostly us and my team. We were an interesting group, very diverse backgrounds, but we've worked together in the past. And we all have the common denominator of patient advocacy and patient choice, people choice, freedom of choice for everyone. We're not paternalistic providers. We are very much into these are all of your options. And if they want our opinion, we can give it. This is what I would do if they ask that of us. But otherwise, it's your job as a provider to educate the patient on what their options are and allow them to make an educated decision. So these are your options. This is what might work better, but you tell me what it is that you're actually going to do instead of people wasting a bunch of time giving this perfect care plan that nobody will ever follow. So you have to meet the patient where they are. And it's the patient, it's the client's, right to tell you what they're going to do. They hired you. You work for them. So
that's not a mindset I typically run across when I go into a doctor's office or any sort of health clinic. So that's really cool. I went to the big box Ohio marijuana card, I believe. I know. I see that face. I understand.
This is a podcast. Nobody can see my face.
No, I know, but I'm sure they can imagine. So for me...
And you're actually registered now.
I am registered now, yeah.
You're one of the lucky ones.
I am one of the lucky ones that did
you.
actually get a card.
Yeah.
My situation was my neck is hurt. Like all the time it hurts. And I didn't know what to do anymore. It got so bad, it was to the point where I was literally thinking of killing myself because I just wanted the pain to stop. Thought about it for a while, but the pain was just so bad that I was just like, I just gotta go. And I just Googled it, and it was the first thing that popped up, and so I went. But other people might be in a similar situation. So why should they go to someplace like Lotus Health instead of the first hit on Google?
Well, I mean, that's their individual choice. But one thing from what you're telling me is looking at one, there's multiple things going on. It's not just about pain with certain mental health issues. What I do, I still see patients. I have a history with mental health patients. And I still see patients actually 1 day a week because I won't give them up at a mental health, Leaside Wellness in Mason, actually.
Right.
But I look with them, and there's a really good team there of practitioners that everyone has their strengths, and they might be better at being able to do, like, I don't do therapy or anything like that. I'm not trained in that aspect. But what I do is I look at mind and body. And actually, mental health is extremely correlated with not only the endocannabinoid system, but the endocrine system. And what happens when people in our society, when they have any type of mental health issue, anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar, we go and it's like, oh, here's a pill for that. And then we end up missing very important things. We poo-poo everything away when someone isn't feeling, oh, well, you're just anxious, take this pill. Well, there's actually a lot of medical reasons as to why you might be anxious. There's genetic reasons as to, I would want to know, like, well, this is a family history of anxiety and depression. Is it situational? There's nutrition reasons. But for example, seasonal affective disorder is the easiest example to give, especially right now with this weather and everything.
Right.
Oh, I have seasonal affective disorder. So you see the ads on TV and then you go to the doctor and you get a pill for that. And it's a pill with massive amounts of side effects. And you're talking about chemicals that are messing with the chemistry in your brain. It's pretty serious, but in our society, it's no big deal. It's just a pill. But all seasonal affective disorder is low vitamin D. That's it. Vitamin D is a hormone, and it's a hormone that's responsible not only for, bone pain, muscle pain, which would make your injury feel worse, but it's also responsible for carrying the serotonin to where it needs to go. Serotonin being the neurotransmitter that messes with our well-being, that says, okay, you're safe now. So you actually have seasonal affective disorder because you don't have any vitamin D synthesized, because you don't go outside and you don't have any UV light. So when people, oh, I'm so happy when I go to the beach. Yes, it's not just because you're on vacation. It's because you have UV light hitting your skin, synthesizing your vitamin D to allow the serotonin to go where it needs to go. It's literally just science. But you don't need a pill. You need to increase your vitamin D intake, hopefully through diet. And if you live in Ohio where you don't have the UV light, get a happy lamp on Amazon for $39. Sit in front of it for 20 minutes a day. You don't need a pill that's going to change you. You need to fix what the problem is to begin with. And that problem is going to make the depression, makes pain worse, pain makes depression worse. It's a nasty cycle, and there's pills for all of it. And then you get side effects, and there's a pill for that. America consumes 35 to 40% of the world's drugs. Why? Our health sucks. We're lower than a lot, third world countries, and we spend more than anybody else. I feel like we're all these sheep, that are, oh, you got to have a pill for that. You got to have a pill for that. You don't. And honestly, you brought up religion. You were going to live straight, right? You're going to be straight and narrow. And Bible, Exodus 30, 22, 23. Cannabis.
Which they didn't teach me in Bible college. What about that?
Yeah, so I'm not saying
what
like
is
Jesus
up with
was
that?
a pothead. I'm just saying that the holy anointing oil, according to the Hebrew translation, is cannabis.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I looked that up, and it was when they translated it to the Septuagint, is when they changed it.
How convenient.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and it's pretty simple looking at the science, looking at it was the most used medication in this country. It was in everything. Eli Lilly, Merck, they all had, their own cannabis medication. It was in almost 50% of all medications in this country until, the 1937 Tax Act, and then taken out of the pharmacopoeia. It was put into the pharmacopoeia 1853, I believe, 1853 or 1858, where it was used, as a medicine by the American Medical Association and recognized as such. And then the Tax Act was placed there to make it completely not financially feasible to continue to use it as a medication.
Yeah, it's really interesting, everything from it being taken out of the Bible translations to pharmacopoeia book. There seemed to be this conspiracy or movement to vilify this plant.
There is zero money in healing. There's no money in healing. There's no money if we're all healthy. There's no money if we don't get cancer or Alzheimer's. If we don't get these diseases, then who's going to make the money? So the money is in sickness. We're a for-profit healthcare system.
Would you mind telling our listeners what you know about the endocannabinoid system?
What do I know about the endocannabinoid system? So you have this system, and it's in charge basically of homeostasis of your body. It puts all of your trains on track. It doesn't make your body do anything like a drug would falsely. It has your body do what it's supposed to do to begin with. It's like the whole do it right the first time. That's what it does. So in my head, I always picture like this huge moving clock, the old time clocks with all of the levers and the wheels and things. And someone just took out the whatever piece of something that was blocking it from moving, because this part causes this part to move, causes this part to move. And the endocannabinoid system is basically making sure that everything is moving the way that it's supposed to be. So you have what we know of it. It's pretty new.
Sure.
About 50 years. Unfortunately, it's only taught in about 10 to 12% of medical schools. So it's not widely discussed even though it's so important. You have, the CB1, CB2 receptors. The CB1 receptors are mostly concentrated in your brain and then through the neuro system, so your spinal cord. And the CB2 receptors mostly concentrated more so in your abdomen, your gut. Your gut controls your immune system response. They work together. They do different things. It depends on what you need. So the endocannabinoid system, given that it keeps you in balance, if you need something, it helps to kind of stimulate that process. But if you need something to stop, it helps to stop that process. It controls, everything from hormones, fertility, and mostly the biggest thing that I see is the autoimmune system. The awesome thing about all of the cannabinoids that we even know of, they're, miracle plants. Just from osteoporosis with the CBG and the CBN helping bone stimulation. So you stop losing bone, in your 30s. You start losing it typically in your 30s, but if you have a supplemented or at least an imbalanced endocannabinoid system, you kind of stop that aging process. Autoimmune diseases, though, cause so much. So if your immune system is in check, it stops every type of sickness. Really, our immune systems are amazing if they're in check. Usually what we do now is we give an antibiotic and then some steroids. Steroids are amazing in the fact that they make us feel awesome. You get a good medral dose pack, you feel like you can breathe again. You rule the world, it feels amazing. The reason that is because it tells your immune system to go sit in the corner and shut up. So don't react to anything at all whatsoever. What cannabinoids do is they tell your immune system to stop being a drama queen and just do your damn job. So your immune system actually works better. So you can decrease the inflammatory response, but in a way that they're still there ready to fight when they need to. So I have, different things that I do for work, for money, but right now I'm spending a lot of time with community education. It's a huge, huge passion of mine, just to get the word out, decrease stigma. And what I love is when I have the naysayers that don't agree with it, and then by the end of the day, they're my patient. Those are the best ones, when you have these big executive naysayers and then, they're your patient before they even know it. And it's just showing them the truth. It's not even like I'm selling them something. This is just the truth. So we do community education, whether it's formal or informal. We have, continuing education units that are approved through the state of Ohio for nurses and social workers. So they can at least get credit for the course, but they want this information. I try to educate different groups, and they'll say, okay, you have this much time, and give me 15 minutes, I'll do it. Give me 5 hours, I'll do it. And they've been saying, you have 45 minutes, and then 2.5, 3 hours later, I'm sneaking out. Because there's so many questions and they want this information. Today alone, the presentation equipment there didn't work. And so it was turned into, I spoke for about 5 minutes, and then it was just hand up, hand up, hand up. And, question after question after question. And I went well over my time to where the next speaker couldn't even go, but the people, and then so I stepped down so I could leave, and people actually left the room behind me.
Trying to follow you out, ask questions.
Literally followed me out, trying to, asking questions. So people want to know the truth and they want to know the information. And what I try and do is provide a safe place that's also professional, where people feel okay to ask about it. And that's what we do. And I have nothing against different types of stores that cater to, certain populations, but you'll find in my office, it's very professional, a relaxed environment, but it's with educational materials relating to addiction, relating to cannabinoid medicine, holistic mental health. We don't wear all green. And I love Bob Marley, but Bob Marley isn't playing over the intercom. I love them, but it's educational documentaries to decrease the stigma. And that's very
So you
helpful.
don't have pot leaf wallpaper all over your office?
No, I mean, and that's great if that's like, I like pot leaf, like that's awesome if that's what people want. But I know where I live. I know my office is in Mason, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to meet my community where they are.
Absolutely.
So that's where I'll do it. Now, I have zero issue doing it anywhere else. We're doing the Loveland Takeover above Plaid Room Records at Tupelo House all the month of January. And we'll be providing information from sexual health to family communication and cannabis. We do that, but then I also have a huge focus right now on the elderly population. With Alzheimer's and hospice. So I've been working with some hospice organizations that want to give their patients this option. They just don't know how. How do they do it while they're staying in compliance with CMS, their major payer? How do they do it while not breaking the law, not mixing federal funds? So working with them and developing policies, procedures, educating them, because so far we've been really lucky. Every place that we've gone to educate, their minds changed. I've been working with some of the political leaders of Mason because it's outlawed in Mason. They're not allowed to sell it. They don't want to talk about it. If you listen to their city council meeting, it was horrendous to hear. Literally, it was the same. I felt like I was listening to a recap of Henry Aslinger.
Really?
It's going to cause devil worship. I shit you not.
At the Mason City Council?
Cause devil worship, yes. But there's political beings. There's large drug companies. There's people on city council who said, we don't want those sick people in our city. Literally, they said this, but there's nothing said about the multiple methadone clinics that we have.
Right.
That's okay because they get a lot of funding from that particular source. But no, there are a couple. The city council is actually split.
Okay.
They lost the vote, but they are very interested in how can we treat addiction. And given the fact that I'm boarded in addiction, I have an ex-DEA license and also cannabinoid medicine, I do try and work with pain clinics who will work with me. If your provider will work with me, I will 100% work with them because there's a healthy way to do this. You have to get their brain healed, at least in the healing process. Make sure you aren't missing any underlying conditions that someone else just threw a pill at. Find what works for them when it comes to treating their pain or whatever it is that they were self-medicating for, or continuing the medication that was given to them by a legal drug dealer, of pill mills and things like that. And you find a happy medium. There's a way to decrease medications while you're increasing the plant and the natural supplements where they can actually heal and actually heal the GABA center in the brain that's been damaged by the long-term opiate use without putting them on benzos, another addiction. So really right now, it's just about education. So there's definitely a place for more professional healthcare types. They need to be able to ask it, and we have to get rid of that whole stigma. That being said, everybody's welcome, in the office, and everyone's welcome to our educations. We just right now are spending a lot of time, and every time we walk out of one education, there's 4 or 5 more asking me, well, can you come here? Can you come here? We did a CEU last Wednesday, and Monday night, they asked me to please come speak to, we were at the Black Nurses Association of Greater Cincinnati. And then I go there, and it was an amazing reception. And I go through the history, and I go through the truth about it. And some of it isn't pretty, but it's what gets people engaged, is acknowledging what happened, why it happened, and what can we do about it to help each other. It was a great opportunity there because one of the audience members, one of the members of the organization, she's actually a part of Normal. So she sat there, and at the end, she's like, this is what we need. This is great. We have to educate each other because nurses don't know that the American Nurses Association approved of this. They don't know that there's this whole history. Every single person that I say, this was the most prescribed medication in our country. What? They have zero clue about the 1944 LaGuardia reports. They have zero clue clue about, cancer and how it affects cancer cells. But the right of the people right now is what I'm focusing on, to heal. And that's why I work a lot with, Josh Short from Stillwater. He likes the focus on the younger people that are already using it and making it legit and making sure they're using the correct, thing for their health. And I like to spread the news to our aging population, like, hey guys, you don't have to be drooling on yourself in a nursing home. There's this whole other natural way. And the majority of my clients at Lotus Health are over the age of 65. And they're starting to ask a lot of questions. That's actually the fastest growing age group with new cannabis users, is above the age of 65.
So if somebody is not 65 or older, are they welcome at Lotus Health?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
All right, great.
We have a lot. Everybody is welcome. I do pre-screen people.
Okay.
So if I think that you're not going to qualify, even though personally I feel people should grow it in their backyards and be allowed to use it whenever they want, I do follow the law, and I don't want to waste your time or your money. I refuse to do it. So if I don't think you'll qualify, I'll tell you, like, I don't think you qualify. And a lot of times they will go to a big box store where they'll get the whole, handshake, wink, wink, and that's fine. I'm not here to discourage them, because it is actually good for most people. It's not just that it's bad for them. But in our office, we, especially being, a nurse practitioner involved in it, and me owning the practice, that already kind of puts a target on you. So we make extra sure that we're doing the P's and Q's. And
But you don't just do cannabis, though, right? You do more holistic healing. So are you able to accept insurance for patients? No?
No, not at Lotus. We have functional endocrinology, where we can accept insurance for the functional medicine part. And then at Leaside Wellness, I accept insurance. But at Lotus Health, I know enough about insurance and the game of insurance. We would be better off if there was no insurance. It's actually a lot cheaper. So for instance, if you were to come to me as a new patient and you had a high deductible plan, the way that you would code the visit as a 99205, you would actually have to pay about $385 just for that visit. So it's actually cheaper to not utilize the insurance. So I do have people that will come in, and it's just the history, physical, and consultation, and they're able to take their receipts and submit it to their insurance companies. But I don't know the overhead that you have to charge a ton of money if you want to use insurance. So it costs way, way less to not use insurance. So we use a lot of the direct primary care type approach.
How often have you turned people away who've come to you looking for a cannabis recommendation?
There's not been many, because like I said, I make sure, and I will tell people on the phone, I have to have this type of documentation, this, and this. And we're allowed to diagnose the patient. If you follow the DSM criteria for diagnosing with certain things, some is more subjective, but they have to meet the criteria to be diagnosed with, say, something like PTSD.
Right.
But with chronic pain, you wouldn't have been able to walk into the office with no x-rays, no history, no documentation and say, oh, I have chronic pain. Not in my office anyway.
I had to bring a file this thick of all my stuff.
I need a file. And if you don't have a file and you've never been actually diagnosed, it's my job as a provider to make sure that we're not missing something that's dangerous to you. So I will have people get x-rays. I need to see that we're not missing something else, because a lot of the providers that do this on the side, they don't understand you're actually taking legal responsibility for that patient's condition at that point in time.
Right.
And there's a lot of obstetricians that are doing this one night every couple of weeks, and they go in, they did the webinar, and they're like, it's probably good. Here you go. And there's implications for that. There's certain concentrations you don't want to use for pain. High levels of THC with certain types of pain actually could make it seem worse. High levels of THC without CBD is horrible for PTSD. When you just give it to everybody and they don't know which type could be good for them, you're passing up the opportunity for that person to be able to actually heal, because they might have a bad reaction, not a dangerous reaction, but a less than pleasant reaction, with the paranoia or the heart racing or something like that. And now they're like, nope, didn't work for me. And back to the pharmaceuticals they go. You have one chance. People are already leery. If you're not a current user, they're already leery of trying this and getting off of pharmaceuticals. You have one chance to make it successful to them.
What would you say to those people who are listening right now who are not using cannabis as medicine but are on the fence and thinking about it?
You know what? Come to one of the educations. Learn about it. That way you won't even feel pressured. Come and sit and listen. And then if you have questions, ask them there. and I don't even know who you are. I don't know what you want, what your history is. So ask me whatever you want. Talk to the team. We're all very versed on it. And ask other patients, do your own research. There's a ton of research out there if you know how to read research. Understand that. But look into it. Outside of this country, believe it or not, there's this whole other world.
Right.
There's this whole other world where it's okay. There's this whole other, we might not have done as many double-blind, randomized, controlled studies here in this country because it wasn't legal to do so, but Israel has.
Yeah.
We need more studies. No, this is by far the most studied thing in the history of humankind. We don't need more studies to prove that it's still, after 10,000 years, not going to kill anybody.
You said go to one of the educational things. Do you have some educational things coming up that you could tell our listeners about?
Yeah, so at the Tupelo House through Peach City Women above Platinum Records, downtown Lebanon, we're doing the January takeover. So starting January 5th, it's a Saturday. The first night has to do with the history, lies, and basics of cannabis. It's in Loveland, Ohio. Historic. It's beautiful, a beautiful venue. A smaller, more homey feel, very inviting environment. Plus, there's some awesome records downstairs if you like music. My music is 100% my drug of choice. So it's a great environment to learn. And we have a general overview that Saturday night, a nice mixer first. And then I always let my audience run the show. So I want to be there to provide to them what they want, not necessarily what I want to say.
Sure.
And then, like I said, then every Friday night, the month of January, I'll be there there's different.
At what time?
7 p.m., I believe. I think it's 6 o'clock. So look on Instagram. Thank God for my team because I am technologically no good. But we have Kim on the team she will make sure that this stuff is up on social media, on Instagram with Peach City Women and Tupelo House. They have that listed. And then I was lucky enough, the company that owns the rights for Weed the People, the documentary, it's very expensive to purchase the ability to show that. And this is all self-financed. This is my retirement and my savings. Like I said, we barely break even. But I was lucky enough to be able to receive the movie. Actually, I finally got it today. Weed the People, the documentary that Freaky Lake put on that had to do with cancer and cannabis and children with cancer. It finally came. I was lucky enough to actually get that. And I'm showing that on January 17th up at the Neon in Dayton. And I can show it. I was able to purchase the multi-venue license, so I can show it anywhere. So if anybody has a venue, Swine City Brewery in Fairfield, I can show it there. They said do a Sunday afternoon. Any venue, I will go show this movie, this documentary that shows the truth behind cannabis and has the professionals speaking about it, not just somebody down the street, but actual scientists who have been in the field for a long time to show the evidence. And then they actually show the children that are told they're going to die. All of a sudden they're in remission. So it's very, it's a big deal. And we're showing that January 17th, Thursday night at 7:30 up at the Neon. So we have that going on February 14th at Central Park Alzheimer's. We'll be doing a continuing education unit breakfast in the middle of the day. It's 3.5 hours long. That's the whole shebang to get credit. Actually, I was invited to speak at the Council on Aging Symposium in March. So I'll be there with information, a booth, and then just to kind of give a general overview to that very large crowd in geriatrics. So give me a venue and I'll go and show people and just to get the word out and let people know that everybody that I typically see look just like us. They just are regular people. It's teachers, nurses, doctors, police officers, foremen working in factories, stay-at-home moms. It's just us. That's what it is. And that's what people need to understand, that they don't have to be, the wine drinking Zanny mom, over there, judging. Like this can help you and it can help your children. So your children don't suffer the way that we have, coming up thinking. So it's about changing the thought process of our community. I mean, we have the opportunity here to help the health of our entire community give respect to our elders and allow people to have the chance to live until they die, not die, not lay there dying
Sure.
until they die. And that's a big deal. That's a huge process in life, and death should be, a beautiful process, and people have the right to die, in a certain way. So I like to educate a lot of the facilities and healthcare providers on that, but as well as families. So we're putting together quite a few more. Usually larger organizations are able to provide venues and places for people to come to gather around. I mean, I guess this summer, I don't care. We can have one in the backyard, next to the trampoline and swing set. I don't care, where it'll be. But yeah, we have a lot coming on the calendar now, and they keep filling up.
Well, that's really cool. I feel honored that you were able to, or that I was able to get you in the studio to talk to us.
I was on an airplane with free Wi-Fi. You can get free texting with T-Mobile in the sky. I didn't know that on Delta. Yeah.
Nice.
So you were able to get in while I had a second to look at my phone.
That is fantastic. Well, I really want to thank you for coming and sharing with our listeners. Hopefully we can get you back in here sometime in the future, maybe with some of the ladies of Lotus.
Absolutely. They are what make everything go round. So
is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with?
Just, if you have the opportunity, if you have questions, please educate yourself. Come to one of the educations, opportunities that we provide. I'm not there to pressure you to come and have your evaluation with us. Just get it. I don't care. Just know what you're getting. Allow yourself the opportunity to at least learn about it. What is it going to hurt you to actually learn about something else? Drill me. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Put me on the spot. If I don't know it, I will find somebody who will. Because I will tell you, after 13 years of being in the weeds, no pun intended, after 13 years of being in it, I learned something new every day. I learned from my patients every day. I learned from colleagues every day who've had different experiences in different areas. So it's a constant learning improvement, but nobody within our current leadership anyway is going to provide or give it to you in a holistic manner. So this is something that we as a community, we have to do for ourselves. So please, come out, leave comments, ask questions. We're ready for it.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Lotus Health will be putting on a 4-part cannabis education series in January 2019 at the Tupelo House at 122 West Loveland Avenue in Loveland, Ohio. Part 1, Cannabis Truth and Lies, will begin at 7 p.m. on Saturday, January 5th, and will be preceded by a cocktail meet and greet at 6:30 p.m. Part 2, Cannabis and Pain Management, will begin at 7 p.m. on Friday, January 11th. Part 3, Cannabis and Sexual Health, will begin at 7 p.m. on Friday, January 18th. Part 4, Cannabis and Family Development, will begin at 7 p.m. on Friday, January 25th. Tickets available online at www.tupelohouse.com/events. All tickets $10 per adult per event. Space is limited. Consider Cannabis is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Consider Cannabis is looking to record interviews with people who can attest to their experience with cannabis versus pharmaceuticals as treatment for the following conditions: AIDS, HIV, ALS, CTE, PTSD, Alzheimer's disease, epilepsy or other seizure disorder, glaucoma, hepatitis C, inflammatory bowel disease, Parkinson's disease, sickle cell anemia, spinal cord disease or injury, Tourette's syndrome, and ulcerative colitis. If this is you, please reach out. Using cannabis as treatment for a different condition, we want to hear your story too. If you would like to be a guest and share how cannabis has helped your health and wellness, contact me at considercannabisnow.com or on the Consider Cannabis Facebook page. If you found anything of value in this episode, please share it with someone else. Remember to subscribe for free and get every new episode delivered right to your phone. Join me next time, and we'll consider cannabis together.